Thanks, Chief, for the very kind introduction. I will try not to speak as long as Chief Wieners just did.
I'm exhausted.
Thank you also, Chief, for your service to our country as a Marine and to our city as the leader of our police department, Semper Fi. As your new mayor, let me thank those who have gone before me as mayors, council members, city staff, and the hundreds who've served as volunteers to make Friendswood what it is today. I'm blessed to have the opportunity to build on the foundation that you've laid. I also want to thank the Horecki family and others who constructed this beautiful memorial and donated it to the residents of Friendswood. We're perpetually grateful for it, and I'm glad our Veterans Memorial is in such a prominent place here on Friendswood Drive. It serves as a silent witness to the price of our liberty. Our city honors all veterans this day and every day. Our special guests at this ceremony every year are our veterans and people currently serving on active duty and their families. It's my honor to recognize all of them, beginning with what's so accurately been called the greatest generation. They were young Americans when chaos was growing in the rest of the world. They saw a dark shadow on the horizon and went to meet it. They understood that tyranny must be met with resolve, and that liberty is always the achievement of courage. Without hesitation, they answered the call of duty, going off to the Pacific, to Europe, and other places during World War II. Today, we honor the greatest generation and their families by asking them to stand if they're able, or raise their hand to be recognized, so that Friendswood may once again thank you for our services and sacrifice. I just this morning met Mr. Paul Yee, one of our World War II veterans, father of Andrew Yee. Thank you for being here today, sir. Military service doesn't stop with the end of hostilities or the signing of a treaty. There were many who continued to serve and sacrifice after World War II. When it was time to go to Korea, the men and women of the armed forces were ready. If you or a family member served between the end of World War II and the end of the Korean conflict, would you please stand or raise your hand so that we may thank you for your service? Following Korea, the U.S. military grew, eventually sending men and women to the jungles of Vietnam and other places around the globe. If you or members of your family served in the military following the Korean War and during the Vietnam War, would you stand or raise your hand so that we can recognize you? Since Vietnam, wars have been fought a different way. Our military and our enemies are using types of weapons and tactics that are unlike ever before. September 11th, 2001 marked a whole new era of our military. Today we have members of the armed forces spread around the world and even within our own borders. No matter where they're stationed, it's a sacrifice for the men and women of our military and their families. If you or a family member have served since Vietnam up to the present day, would you stand so that we can thank you? Today we honor all who have served and their families. As we hear so often, all gave some gave all. We'll never forget those who made the ultimate sacrifice to maintain our liberty. Let's have a moment of silence, please, in their honor. Thank you. Friendswood Drive behind you hosts many parades. It's one of the things that makes Friendswood special. My hometown, Wadsworth, Ohio, also has parades. I remember going to many parades when I was a kid. The Memorial Day Parade, or Decoration Day as my grandmother called it, was always started in the center of town and proceeded to the town cemetery. The groups of the different war veterans would march together, carrying a banner in front of them that showed which war they had fought in. Believe it or not, I can still vividly remember a group of Spanish-American War veterans marching down the street in front of me. And for those of you that are trying to do the math in your heads, the Spanish-American War was fought in 1898. And I'm remembering this particular parade in about 1964 when I was 7 years old. So that was a span of 66 years. Now, Paul Yee and the other World War II veterans that we just recognized, they fought 73 years ago. So imagine, we still have veterans here today with us who have fought 73 years ago for us. While growing up in Wadsworth, I had already started to dream big. I wanted to not only fly airplanes, but fly in space. I graduated from Wadsworth High School in 1975 and was honored to attend the U.S. Naval Academy. By 1981, I was designated a naval aviator, and just 17 years later, I say just 17 years later, it seems like a long 17 years to me, I became an astronaut in 1998. That experience exceeded even my biggest dreams. I was able to not only fly in space twice, but to do 5 spacewalks. But there was a Memorial Day experience which brought me down to earth, and it happened back in Wadsworth. In 2014, Wadsworth celebrated its bicentennial. On that occasion, they unveiled a new Veterans Memorial in the center of town. It's not as large as the one that we have here in Friendswood, but it lists all of the men and women from Wadsworth who gave their lives fighting in wars dating back to the Civil War. I was honored to help unveil it. Pulling back the cover of that memorial was poignant for me because the first name that my eyes fell upon when we lifted back the cover was that of my great-uncle, Joseph O'Mara. No doubt as a son of Wadsworth, Joe O'Mara had big dreams. It's sad that they were cut short when he died in World War II. No doubt some of you had dreams that were deferred or cut short because you were a family member honored to call to military service. To all of you who have served in our military, past and present, and their families, you have our respect, you have our gratitude. All we can say, and it's not nearly enough, but all we can say from the bottom of our hearts is thank you. Today, we again resolve that your service and sacrifice will always be remembered. At times, the news headlines may be discouraging and the future looks unsettled. I want to say to the men and women, past and present, of the Air Force, Army, Coast Guard, Marines, and Navy, whether you are a veteran on active duty in the reserves or Guard, you've made the world safer for all of us. Our nation is free because of brave Americans who volunteer to confront our adversaries abroad so we don't have to face them here at home. Our city and our nation mourn the loss of our men and women in uniform who've died for our freedom. We will honor them by carrying on the mission for which they gave their lives, by defeating the terrorists, by advancing the cause of liberty, and by laying the foundation of peace for future generations of young Americans. Thank you for being here today. God bless you, God bless Friendswood, and God bless America.